Rickey Smiley. Did you see Rickey Smiley's daughter got shot? She's not dead, thank God. Erin is her name. She's 19 years old. She was driving to a Whataburger. Is it a Whataburger? I've never been to a Whataburger. I don't think they're here. Are they here, Smith?
I think it's a Whataburger.
No, it's what? It's definitely what? It's definitely what?
Whataburger.
Whataburger. Is it here or is it just in the Midwest or in the South?
I think it's on the. I want to say it's on the West Coast because I haven't heard of it in the Midwest nor on the East Coast.
Okay, so it's all over Texas. I'm hearing. I'm seeing Texas. Queen Lindsay is telling me this in the chat. Well, anyway, she attends Baylor, which is in Texas. She's studying medicine, and she's driving to Whataburger, and 2 cars pull up beside her at a light and start a shootout, and she gets caught in the crossfire. Got shot 3 times, and so Rickey Smiley had something to say yesterday. Dometi, Drew, and I had this conversation that we normally would never have on these airwaves because people are listening. But I think because we are nimble, we should be able to do Black Lives Matter, hold police accountable, hold our politicians accountable, vote, fill out the census, and hold one another accountable. I think we should be able to do all of those things and not spend our dollars recklessly. That's 7 things we can do all at the same time. I think we're capable of doing that. So I'm going to play this clip from Rickey Smiley, and I want your thoughts on it. All right. Do you have it, Smith? You ready? Okay.
And I just don't understand it. In the middle of a war, in the middle of a pandemic, and in the middle of a modern day legitimate civil rights movement. Because I'm with Black Lives Matter. I'm with it. And I'm not even finna cross that up. Because everything that Black Lives Matter is doing is legit, and I'm with it, and I support it, and I'm not gonna cross it up. But after this election, before this election, anytime, because whenever anybody says something, you get labeled as talking down to black people. You get dragged on the internet for talking down to black people when somebody's telling the truth about a correction that a lot of people don't respect us because of the way we act.
So he goes on to talk about Chicago and, the 8-year-old that was killed in Atlanta. And, we had this conversation regarding Keisha Lance Bottoms yesterday and what she had to say about the crime that was happening in Atlanta. 2 things can be true. I say this all the time, Dometi.
Yeah.
And we should be able to have this conversation and not be in the finger-wagging category of Bill Cosby. We should be able to have this conversation and not be Terry Crews, who is completely tone deaf and doesn't have a clue about what's actually going on in the real world, in Black America. I don't know what world he lives in. We should be able to have this conversation. You're from Chicago. We have these conversations off mic all the time, privately, not you and I, but when I say we, the collective we, we have these conversations. Yes. What are your thoughts?
So there's a lot to unpack there. First, you brought up Booker T. Washington. And what I think was dope about Booker T, even though I disagree with a lot of his politics, I like that he used his influence and his resources to bring about the end that he wanted to see in his specific way. And when I look at people like Terry Crews, I'm okay with intellectual disagreement if your intentions are pure and if your actions reflect what you say you believe in. And what becomes clear when people criticize movements that don't address black-on-black crime or horizontal violence, as I more often like to say, you find that these people aren't working with any of the organizations that are fighting this issue. So are you really sincerely fighting to figure out how we can stop harming one another? Or do you just want a counterpoint because you have been indoctrinated to believe that when black people fight for human rights, there's something offensive about that? And a lot of us have been educated to be skeptical of our own fight for human rights. Now, the reason I framed it that way is because I really admire Rickey Smiley. He does a lot of community work.
Yes, he does.
He does. And so I feel like he has the authority and the right. And even him, he was measured in his response, even though he was emotional. And this happened to his daughter. Thank God his daughter didn't pass. So he has a little bit of a leeway to say, because he's organized community events, to say some things. But I really balk at people who aren't doing the work, but are criticizing the people who are. And now you're putting every black problem on the shoulders of Black Lives Matter. That's unfair to that youth movement.
Yes, it is, which was founded on the heels of the killing of Trayvon Martin. So it wasn't even in direct response to police per se, just violence against black bodies, right? Mm-hmm. And then it evolved from there. And it's going to continue to evolve because the leaders are evolving. And I expect, again, institutional knowledge, ancestral knowledge being a thing. I hope movements grow and evolve and mature into things that then become economic might, technological might, where you then start to figure out as the leaders of those movements grow. And the thing I love about Black Lives Matter, you can't really point to one person. It's kind of amorphous. Is it Patrice? Is it, who is it? Is it the guy with the blue vest? I don't know. It's a lot of people. Yeah. And each of them may have their own individual agendas, but as a statement, as a movement, we've all glommed onto it and made it something that makes sense to us individually and collectively. So, and
what you'll find in a lot of local communities is that there are, in a different way, there are very pointed people that you can point. I can point to Aisha Butler, for example, in an organization called Rage Inglewood. Inglewood is one of the most violent neighborhoods in Chicago. There's an organization headed by this woman, Aisha Butler, who is fighting specifically to stop black-on-black crime, horizontal violence. You've got Mothers Against Black-on-Black Violence in Chicago. You've got the Violence Interrupters. You've got T.O. Hardiman. You've got Amina Matthews. You have organizations that have not only been fighting through arts programs and block parties and that type of thing to give young people something to do. You got the summer programs like After School Matters that I was in a part in. Mm-hmm. I've lost students that I've taught over the summer to gun violence. And, next semester, where's Brother Terry? Terry got killed last summer. But we are actively fighting for these things. And anyone who says that black folks aren't fighting against this thing where we harm one another have no interest, in my opinion, in actually being a part of that fight. Because before you pick up your phone and tweet, you'll pick up your phone and figure out in your city what are people doing. And you'll find that, there's mad organizations doing this work. The problem is, even violence against one another in our community is still state sanctioned because it is the byproduct. It's the byproduct of all of the things, all of the economic disparities that exist.
Mass incarceration, poverty, lack of education, all of the things that are systemic.
This doesn't happen in a vacuum. We talk often about our travels around the world. We go to Ghana. We go to third world countries. Some third world in Ghana, the crime rates, violent crime rates, aren't as high as they are in America in poor communities, and they are poorer. So what is it about the American experience that is intrinsically more violent than it is around the rest of the world? Why do we have more people? What is it? A quarter of the world's incarcerated population?
But I don't know why. There's a financial component. It's slavery. 866-801-8255. But that's why I hesitate to have these conversations in public, because there are people who are intellectually dishonest, or they're incapable of being able to listen to this conversation and not go, well, black people are violent. Black people, you guys can't even, whatever. I like the horizontal thing because Asians kill Asians, white people kill white people. It's just you kill in proximity. But this is something different. And the question that I have on the table that I'm going to say in public and ask in public, Dometi Pongo is here. Can we overcome the institutional racism, the indoctrination into self-hate, the ways in which our ghettos have even been set up? They're designed. They studied this in the lab. The projects were designed. You were in Cabrini Green, one of the worst projects I've ever seen in my entire life. I got a chance to do a whole expose when I was at the Daily News, when I was covering the Bulls and the Knicks, because I was a person on the street covering news during a sports event. And I saw kids without shoes in the back of that project. And I have been to Newark projects, which I thought were the worst I'd ever seen. Brooklyn, of course. But Cabrini Green. So I was glad when that project went down. But think about how many years people were languishing in this experiment that even lab rats go crazy when put into these little boxes in these tight spaces. And there's still projects that exist to this day just like that. So we can't have that conversation without, we can talk trailer parks, but just still, it's not the same.
Not the same. Not the same. There's the lack of ancestral memory. I'll put it like this. We'll even take a different community, right? There's a pattern that you look at when you look at marginalized groups and the specific ways they're oppressed. Been doing a lot of work with indigenous communities lately, right? Why do we see higher rates of depression, domestic violence, and alcoholism on some Native American reservations? There is a specificity to a certain kind of oppression and marginalization that brings about certain outcomes. In our community, it manifests as gun violence. In that community, it tends to manifest as depression, domestic violence, and et cetera. But when you look
alcoholism.
And alcoholism. If you look at, for example, the Japanese internment camps, when that happened during World War II, when Reagan gave them the reparations in 1988, they deserve those reparations, but the memory, the lineage attached to that isn't linked to our country's specific history of building on the backs of that specific community. So after those reparations, you don't see the lingering effects, the ancestral memory, once again, of what it was like to go through what it is that they went through, because it was for a period of time and America didn't sustain it. For our communities, we had a sustained, deliberate oppression against us. And so we can't talk about black-on-black crime, horizontal violence, without acknowledging that sustained effort to marginalize those communities and researching how America does this time and time again in multiple communities.